Good evening. This is John Milburn. In relation to Laws 11057, Introduction to Law, well, we've reached week 12 in relation to the subject for Term 3, 2015-2016. We have a number of people online tonight. There is no new material that I propose to provide tonight. It's really a commentary in relation to the exam itself and to answer any questions that you might have. In terms of the exam, this year I've put a lot of detail on the Moodle site. So many of the things that I'd normally talk about in this week 12 session is already there on the front page. In terms of writing exams, there are a few basic tips that I should share with you. These are on the website, so on Moodle, so you can look at that for more elaboration. But in general terms, use complete sentences, don't use abbreviations. I think you know that I don't like the abbreviated form of language, so use a fairly formal language in your examination. Before you start to write, think about what it is that you're going to write and how long you're going to allocate for that. Bear in mind, of course, that most of the marks that you receive will be in the first 50%. It's much easier to get the first 50% than the second 50%. So don't spend all of your time on one or two questions. Make sure that you spread your time evenly. It's amazing to me, every term I get a number of students that don't answer every question and simply forego what I think would be relatively easy marks by not offering any answer at all. I'm sure you won't do that. In terms of the referencing, it's always an issue, and in an exam where you're required to provide handwritten notes, I'm not too fussed about footnote referencing. In fact, I'd probably discourage it. I think it's too hard to do when you're writing an exam. So some sort of Harvard-style referencing is fine. And by that I mean, as you write something, just in brackets put the source of your material. So it might be that you state something and then put in brackets the New Lawyer, page 42. I don't need you to put the full reference. I don't need you to put the name of the publisher or anything else. The main purpose of the referencing in the exam is simply for you to acknowledge the source of your material. That's what I'm really after in that sense. So if you plan your answer before you start to write, I think you'll do a much better job. Sometimes we see answers where there's a lot of deletion and material where people have started to write, changed their minds, and I think that would have been better served. They would have been better served by planning what they wish to say before they do so. Obviously, you may have some pre-prepared answers. Take that in, and that's okay. Question here about whether the style of referencing that I have suggested would be okay for other exam subjects. I really can't speak for other course coordinators. Others may have their own personal views, so probably best if you ask through Moodle or UCrew if that course coordinator is asking for questions through UCrew. I would think yes, I would think that that's fine, but I can't say for sure, I'm sorry. But that's a good question. Make sure that you do proofread your material, particularly if you've got time. I'm always amazed that people will write things and it's not quite right. With some time, it would have been easily corrected had you thought about correcting it at that stage. There will be the redrafting exercise. It's going to be quite different to the redrafting exercise that I've used in past examination papers. And I guess the big hint that I could give you there is it's much longer. Don't be immediately thrown by the length of the document. Don't panic, keep cool, and work your way through it. But it won't be a case of trying to condense 400 words down into 100. I think the source material is many more words than 400. So it may require you to use your speed reading skills initially and then reread in more depth once you've identified the core issues in that redrafting exercise. It's actually quite a simple one, but it may not look simple when you start the exercise. In terms of the essay style questions, same rules apply as always, and that is try to provide structure to your answer We keep talking about the IRAC method. That's a great way to think about writing a response to an essay-style question. Don't be too concerned about your handwriting. I'd rather that you get all the information that you want on the page, even if the handwriting's a bit scrappy. I'm pretty good at deciphering handwriting, and of course, you know, I feel it's a shame if people spend a lot of time being meticulous when that might be at the cost of providing information that I'd really like to see. Don't be afraid to express your own thoughts in the exam, but if it is your own thought, make sure that you say that that is simply your position on a certain issue, as opposed to not saying that at all. All right, if there are any questions in relation to the exam, I'm very keen to answer them. I think that you'll find that the time goes very quickly for a 3-hour exam, but make sure that you're well prepared in the sense of you've got all the material ready to go, collected your thoughts, and make sure you don't take in anything that will enable you to access the internet. So leave your phone in the car or at home, as I think I mentioned previously. All right, so that's it for the examination. Unless there are any questions, I don't think there are. You'll get a good guide to what's in the exam by looking at something that we have done previously. Question is, do we need any identification? I think the answer is yes, but I actually don't get involved in the logistics of the exam. But make sure that you're aware of that. I'd certainly take your ID as a precaution. Make sure by now that you know exactly where you will be sitting the exam, and if you haven't already driven to or travelled to the exam venue, if you've got time to do so, I'd recommend you get there. You check it out beforehand so that you're not left in a stressful situation of trying to find the particular location or trying to find the building or the room that you're after. So do all that well in advance. It's all part of planning and stress resilience, I guess. All right. So I'm not sure if anyone has already found their venue, but we've identified it's Thursday the 18th of February, and that's at 9 o'clock. Now, I assume the 9 o'clock means Australian Eastern Standard Time, Queensland time, but please make sure that you don't arrive an hour late because there was confusion about time zones, etc. So please check that out well in advance. Unfortunately, from time to time, we do get issues that arise in the examination, and it's very difficult to deal with that after the event. So be prepared for things to not necessarily go smoothly. It may be, for example, that a car alarm goes off, or it might be that there's some sort of distraction or there's some issue that arises. Work your way through that. I know it's probably trite to say, but in some ways that's just life. That's what we need to encounter. And given that part of the exam is dealing with issues to do with resilience, then that requires you to work your way through that even in the exam. Now, Emma's made a comment. It also states that perusal time is before the 9 a.m. start. All right, well, thank you very much for that statement. So please be aware of that. If you have any information, given that I'm not a source of information as far as the logistics of the exam is concerned, please raise it, I would think, on UCrew. I think people would really value the shared information that you might have. So I really do encourage you to share that information on UCrew. Anything to do with the exam would be great. Might also help to settle the nerves. If you're feeling nervous about it, if you're feeling a bit stressed, don't hesitate to mention that on UCrew, because if you're feeling that way, others may be feeling that way as well, and you might be able to help each other through that process, probably better than I can help you at this stage. When it comes to the exam, don't feel as though everything must be in writing. If you think you can express something by use of a flowchart or some diagrammatic representation, then that's fine. So in the same way that I've encouraged you to be creative in your assessment pieces, feel free to do so in the exam as well. I have no problem with that also, at all. And in some ways that can really help. So be prepared for that possibility. Okay, so the exam, the 18th of February, 9 a.m. Emma has suggested that there is perusal time before the 9 o'clock start, And the 9 o'clock start we think is Queensland time. Be aware of time zones and make sure you plan your exam process before you start. Don't be too precious about the handwriting. I can read the handwriting. Okay, well, I think that's covered most of what I want to say. As I said, normally I'd go for much longer, but I decided to put it all on the front page of Moodle this time. So have a look at that and let me know if there's any problems. Just on another topic, in terms of the third assessment piece, I've marked all of the, now Luke says, I thought it would be the local time for the exam. Just check that out. So I'm not going to offer any suggestions about the time of the start. I'm just relaying information that I've received. Unfortunately, that's something I'll need to leave with you. But as I said, encourage communication through uCrew. And all right, so Luke's going to phone and double check. If you have a phone number or a contact number or an email address or anything else for the people that look after the exams, please pop that on uCrew, just as much as for anything for my information, because that's not something that I check. So the exam process for me involves writing it, which is done well in advance, and submitting that, and then ultimately receiving the exam paper and marking it. As for all the good things that happen in between and the logistics, I don't know, I'm sorry. Okay, so in the Student Centre it says arriving no later than 30 minutes before the exam commences. And given what you said about the perusal time being before the 9 o'clock start, I'm not sure what that exactly means in terms of the start of the exam, whether that means it's 8:30 or 8:45. But 30 minutes before the exam commences is the key. So make sure that you're aware of all that, ready to go, and there's no confusion on the day. Thank you for your contributions there. In terms of the third assessment piece, the range of marks is quite wide in this instance. Not everyone has passed this assessment. If when you get your results you find that you have not passed the assessment or you've not done well at all in terms of what you might have expected, feel free to contact me. Feel free to communicate via uCrew as well. I think it's worthwhile to have a joint discussion about these things in terms of assessment. But it may be that some people are very disappointed with their mark. On the other hand, some students have done a remarkable job and they've been rewarded, to my mind, accordingly as well. So the assessment piece requires, if you want a HD, you need 85, a D is 75, credit is 65, and a pass is 50. In terms of the way I assess the course, there is no such thing as a bell curve. Theoretically, everybody could get a HD. In terms of the way I mark it, I just mark it as I see it. And also with the exam, unlike the assessments through the course, there will be no feedback. You will get a mark, but that's about it. Sorry. What else can I tell you? Oh yes, you don't have to pass every piece of the assessment on the way through to pass the examination, or pass the subject rather. If you get a total of 50%, then you pass the exam, irrespective of where those marks were originally derived. Okay, now usually at this stage I do a typing test challenge. If anyone wants to take me on, I'll do it, but I'm not feeling confident. I'm having troubles with Dragon on my home computer, so I'm an easy beat tonight, so that wouldn't prove anything. I only make the challenge if I think I will actually win it, and I wouldn't tonight. So unless anybody has a burning desire to beat me in a challenge that they know they'd win, then I won't propose to do that tonight. Okay, well folks, you've really been, I think this class is a really good class. I think there are a lot of very good students in this class, and what I propose to do is follow what people in this class have been doing and will do in the future. So I have access to information, which means that I can keep a quiet eye on people, and because I have second year classes and other classes, I often see people again. So hopefully we'll see many of you doing some of the classes that I do, such as alternative dispute resolution and environmental law down the track. But at this stage, unless there's any questions or comments, anything else, I'll stop the recording, upload this to the Moodle site and uCrew. All right, so I'll stop the recording now. And all the best for the exam, and thank you very much for doing this course. I really appreciate it.